Good morning. It's Sunday, January 20th, and this is Inside the FLX, presented by FL1 News. Today we're getting an update on the Lake Tunnel Solar Village in Geneva, and at the end of the month they will celebrate a big milestone. We caught up with Lake Tunnel's founder, Ryan Wallace, earlier this week to break it all down and discuss it. We talked progress in Geneva, but we also talked about solar communities and their long-term viability, as well as practicality in other places in the Finger Lakes. Of course, before we get to that conversation, a brief message from today's show sponsors, Medei, Miras, and Ricky, the Finger Lakes personal injury attorneys. With offices in Seneca Falls and Geneva, they are ready to serve you.
I was severely injured. I was on a ventilator. My husband was scared and he just went for the nearest number that he had heard advertised over and over and figured they're the best, they know what they're doing. I think that's the typical reaction, but unfortunately it wasn't the right one. And I'm thankful that we learned that early on in the process. He decided to look for someone locally who would give us a little more personalized attention. And when we met Steve and talked with him, we knew that we had found that person. If you want to feel like you have an attorney who's in your corner, who's going to listen to you, who's going to endeavor to understand you, give Steve a call. I really felt like everyone at Medei, Miras, and Ricky really cared.
For a law firm that cares about you, contact Medei, Miras, and Ricky at 315-568-0911. Prior results do not guarantee a similar outcome.
All right, Ryan, thanks for making time stopping by. Obviously, you guys have been crazy busy over the last several months. Where do we stand right now with Lake Tunnel and just in terms of what you guys are working through?
So we are building homes in the factory at 33 Forge Avenue right now, and at the Lake Tunnel site we've been putting in foundations over the past 2 weeks. All the utilities are in to provide water and sewer and electric. And what's been really exciting is to see the homes come together in the factory. So we're building them modularly in the factory over the industrial park, and then they'll get transported to the Lake Tunnel site. The first one here in the first week of February will get installed.
So where did the idea, where did the concept come from? Where did that start? Obviously, it's been a couple of years now.
Yeah. So. When we first heard about the DRI award, which was for us has now basically become a grant from Empire State Development, organized by the governor's office and is now being managed by Empire State Development. And when we heard about the DRI award, we knew we wanted to do a housing development. And the concept from the very beginning was to create smaller, higher quality homes and do them in downtown Geneva. We'd actually developed a plan early on for State Street to do this, and those plans are actually still there, but have been delayed by the foundry cleanup. So we had already been in that mindset, and when we heard about the DRI award and we had started looking at potential sites, we found the Lake Tunnel site, and it's an amazing gem. This site that kind of got maligned over the years as like this fill site, and it was swampy, and there's all these reasons to not develop it. And what's been fascinating is as we built the site up, literally brought in fill and built the site up, and it's how the attitudes have kind of changed, and now people are starting to be able to picture it. And it really is this remarkable site where you walk 75 feet and you're at Jennings Beach. You walk 75 feet the other direction through the Lake Tunnel underneath 5 and 20, and you're right at the water. And then you walk another 472 steps, not that I've counted, and you're at Linden Street. Yeah. And so it is this amazing site where it's such a. I was literally just thinking about this morning. It's great that you asked, because I was like, man, we've gotten so caught up in building the homes and building the factory that we kind of forgot, like, the whole point of this was to build this new little community down by the lake, and And standing down there today, we were literally pouring concrete today. I'm still in my coveralls, and it's just a fantastic site.
So I want to talk a little more about that because I think that is really, really interesting. This is actually two separate developments. So the factory is one really exciting development, and I think the one that isn't talked about nearly as much as the one that people are physically seeing every day off of 5 and 20, which is the physical development of that area. How interesting is it being part of what is actually, I guess, two separate economic development projects which are rolled into one?
Exhausting, time consuming, stressful, and incredibly rewarding. It's definitely not, it's all possible because of the determined efforts of a whole bunch of people. And when you look at my wife, Tracy Wallace, my mother, Marita, they are actually the driving force. They're actually the owners of the Lake Tunnel development site. So they're out there. In fact, they were just out there today keeping an eye on things. But they actually facilitate a lot of the logistics. And then we have Mark Rodriguez, who's our VP of Construction, and Dave Patrick, who's a new partner into the company, who's a really fantastic builder. And he took on all the foundation work and built all the foundations. And the reason I mention all this is it took this group of people to kind of, come together, and then, obviously money helps too, and Lions National Bank is a big part of that. And the reason I'm kind of throwing all these people and props out is it's been so exciting to see that energy of a group of people come together, and it really has started to click. Like, we're building something completely new that's going to change literally the shape and face of Geneva. And that group, I think, is just, we're kind of humming on all 8 cylinders now. Although that's a bad reference. We're big into electric motors, so we're humming along at full kilowatts. And so that has been stressful, but that group has really come together. And I don't think it'd been possible if we didn't have a group effort to do 2 big projects like that at one time.
So you touched a little bit on the physical restoration that had to happen to the property itself before you guys were actually able to start. Give the folks listening a little bit of context. How many feet? What was the actual makeup of that overhaul that had to happen before you guys could even get started?
Yeah. So first of all, the site used to be the lake. I mean, the lakefront was just a few feet off of the railroad track, and so all of that was engineered fill brought in when they created the bypass for routes 5 and 20. And we've heard people talk about how it was so low that it used to actually be water in there that would move with the lake level, and how people would actually bring in small boats, like small fishing boats and stuff, into that spot. So over the years, both, they've brought in feet of fill, some of which was construction debris, another was real fill, and then it's been kind of compacted over time, but not evenly. So what we had to do is we had to bring in these screw piles and actually put these big steel screw piles into the ground. There'll be 190 of them over the whole site. And what that does is it binds all the different layers together. And so they go down about 35 feet into the ground. And that is kind of our the work we've done to tie everything together. That's really fascinating if you're a geologist or or a building technology guy. But other logistics, we had to bring in water, we had to bring in sewer, and that's been a learning experience because we're not only building homes, but we're having to be major site developers. So all of that's in, and now we're building the homes, and that's really now the really rewarding part.
How many acres are we talking about as far as the site goes itself, all included?
So it's 3 acres, but less than an acre is actually buildable for homes because of roads. That 3 acres includes the drive that comes in, and then because of the size of the site, we've had to create really complex stormwater management. So all this stuff kind of happens literally below ground, or you don't really see it. But we have hundreds of thousands of dollars into the ground now that is designed to capture the rainwater, because now being so close to the lake, what we're doing is we're capturing that runoff from the streets and the houses, and it all gets filtered before it gets to Seneca Lake. So we're not adding, any substantial amount of, hydrocarbons or runoff or silt or anything into Seneca Lake. And that's really important to us because all that runoff goes right to Jennings Beach, which, we hope will become the new city swimming beach. So it's a lot of logistics, but it's doing the right thing the right way. So
How many units are we talking about that would be at the end, be on the actual property itself?
So because of those restrictions, unfortunately, we've had to kind of constantly shrink back the number of homes. And what we're announcing today is that we now have 13 more homes for sale. And the reason why is we've decided not to do condominiums. The reason for that mainly is because we've built this factory. That factory builds single-family homes, and that's what we need to be building. So, I'm sure there's going to be some disappointed folks who are looking forward to having kind of condo homes by the lake there, but for us, it's important that we build a really first-class community first, and we're going to build that with the product coming out of our factory. So we've got total whole development is 21 homes, and as you mentioned, the exciting part of that is we've got this other thing. We've got this factory literally spitting out homes, and eventually we'll be able to ship those all over the Northeast, anywhere within 400 miles.
So then the next question is, in that manufacturing process, what does that manufacturing process look like? I know we talked a little bit about that the last time you were here over the summer, but just to kind of give people an idea of what's happening in Geneva, is happening right in Geneva. Walk us through what that looks like in terms of timeline.
So we've joked that we're going to get a big sign, that we're going to have Community Proud, build us a big sign that says wood goes in here and homes come out here.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. We take in raw material, big LVL beams, 2x12s, and then these wall packages, which come from a company up in Clyde called EPS that builds these SIP walls. And SIP wall is basically a very, very energy efficient unit that is the entire wall assembly. So we get these in as packages and raw materials, and our guys put them all together. We've got 7 carpenters. We've got 3 electricians and plumbers, either on staff or working with local subcontractors, and so we've got all these guys on the floor building homes in their entirety inside the factory. So that we build this big floor box first, and that is our foundation. It goes on a permanent foundation on site, but it's our foundation while it's in the factory. And what that does, it allows us to lift the entire house up with these big rotary lifts, and it's nerve-wracking and totally exciting when we do that, because you're watching this 30,000-pound house get lifted up into the air, and then we can put a trailer underneath it and pull it out, and that transport just takes it to the site, and then it gets craned off of the trailer and put on a permanent foundation, and that's the process. But we're doing everything in the factory, the framing, the drywall, the electrical, the plumbing, we even hang the toilet paper holders. So.
Is this, when you talk about this, it sort of sounds like this is the future. Is this what in your opinion, is this what the future of the sort of housing market looks like down the road when you start to talk about how homes are built?
It has to be. Yeah. And we are not the ones inventing this. Modular housing has been around for a long time, but what we are doing and what they are doing in Europe is they are creating a repeatable module that can be customized and laid out in different ways, but it's kind of the same box being built over and over and over and over again. And then it gets put together in different ways, and it gets different types of siding and different kinds of trim to create its own unique character. But that assembly line process would eventually allow us to build hundreds of homes in a year to the exact same standard every time and be completely unaffected by weather, to be completely unaffected by site conditions, and frankly, we can get the price points down to where we can bring affordable housing back. Because I was just reading an article in the Chicago Tribune that the homeless population around big cities is exploding, and it's exploding with people who don't have any of the traditional factors that are associated with homelessness. I mean, there's people who are in their 50s, and they worked for 30 years, and they sold their home to have some retirement, and with the expectation that they would be able to find some sort of affordable housing in the markets they live in. They haven't been able to find them, and so they're literally buying RVs and living full time in small RVs and trailers, and entire groups of people who are working for companies, big companies, and they can't find housing, and they're living in trailers. I mean, and to me that's insane. I mean, we can build an affordable home in a factory. And the exciting thing is we can install these homes in a matter of weeks. If all the site work is done, that's what's taken all this time.
Right.
I mean, when we're fully to speed, we can build a home in 2 weeks and have it installed on site, heated, powered, within a week after that. So and that may even be conservative. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it absolutely is the future of housing. It's I think takes people seeing it first, and that's what's really exciting this next month when people actually get to see the homes on site.
So then the flip side of that is, obviously, as you guys are going through this process, there is even locally a bit of a tiny home movement happening at the same time. Do you guys sort of see that as an opportunity, a collaboration are you guys all just moving in the same direction and everyone else is watching you guys?
I think that there is a lot of people who are part of kind of the tiny home movement, but I would even say there's a much larger group of people, both retirees and kind of the millennial generation, that is willing to trade space for quality and is willing to trade space for affordability. Our homes are not tiny homes. The smallest home we do right now is 650 square feet. Mm-hmm. Most tiny homes are kind of top out around 300. Mm-hmm. But that 600 to 1,000 square foot range can be very accommodating to two people. And even we've got a variation of our 1,000 square foot that's 3 bedrooms, and would be very accommodating to a small family. So I do think there's a bigger push here to trade size for quality and trade size for affordability. And you see it mainly in the bigger markets. We plan on being able to serve, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, New York, Boston, and I think that you're going to see more and more of that. I think that what are gone or on their way out are the days of McMansion developments and 3,000 square foot starter home developments. Even the bigger builders who are building traditionally are putting a lot of their emphasis on single level 1,200, 1,500 square foot homes and smaller developments with less land around them.
You beat me to the punch. I was going to ask that. Does that mean that the 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 square foot cookie cutters are really on their way out now?
I think so, and you're seeing it. The data's saying that. And I think if I had one of those homes, I'd try to sell it while I could, because there may not be a market for it later.
What's the driver behind that? What do you think? Is it a mindset shift, or is it partly economic? Like, what do you think some of the factors are that are pushing people, young people in particular, in that direction?
I think it's economic.
Yeah.
I think it's hidden cost of ownership. I mean, if you buy a 3,000 square foot home, you can expect to spend $500,000 over the next 30 years in natural gas, electricity, exterior maintenance, interior remodeling, and then even just little things like lawn care. There's a tremendous amount of money spent. I mean, $500,000. I mean, this is all data from Bureau of Labor Statistics on what the average home needs in terms of, and census data on average number of dollars spent on, re-roofing a home, re-siding a home. I mean, you take a 3,000 square foot home and all of those numbers get bigger. And a lot of those homes were built when construction costs were 30, even 40% less than they are now. And so you start looking at what's it really going to cost you to replace that roof and that siding and so on, and it's daunting. The second thing is, I think, social. So if you're on social media and you're seeing your friends experiencing things, I think that has led both the baby boom generation and millennial generation to put more emphasis on experiences rather than kind of the material home ownership side. So we get a lot of questions from our buyers on, what do I really have to do if I just leave this home for 2 months? What do I got to do to pack up and go? Do I have to winterize it? And for us, the answer is no. You lock the door and you leave. I mean, there's no worrying about who's going to mow the lawn. There's no worrying about, is the home going to be warm? If there's a power outage, are my pipes going to freeze? None of that. You just go, and huge selling factor from our buyers. So that not having to spend the time is definitely a strong second to the money.
Is the economic part of it the argument that you guys make when somebody says, well, the homes are a little more expensive up front?
Yeah.
Is the response to that, well, if you look at the long-term investment, you're saving boatloads of money.
Yeah.
You just have to wait for that return, or at least front it so that you can save that down the road.
Our homes are the same purchase price, and monthly cost of ownership as a traditional home that's $40,000 less. Because when you take your electric bill and your heating bill, you're going to spend $40,000 over the next 20 years. You're going to spend, $20,000 just over the next 10 years. So it's it is an argument, but what's been exciting is that more and more people are embracing the smaller size. So I don't even have to make that financial argument. If they're looking at a 1,500 square foot home for $200,000, and they can buy our 1,000 square foot for almost the same price, they're sacrificing space for that quality and to not have the heating and the electric bill. So a lot of times we're not asking people to pay more. We're just asking them to imagine living in slightly, smaller space, 30 or 40% smaller space.
And I would assume that one of the other draws is that communities like this can be placed in places where you otherwise wouldn't be able to build large homes, right?
Absolutely. I mean, our entire model, and we've gotten a lot of great support from Brian Stratton at the Canal Corporation, and again, I mentioned from Lions National Bank, trying to, what's cool about, not to do a plug, shameless plug here, but L&B is very cool in that they will not only fund us, but then they are seeking to connect us with people and communities that can further our business. And so we've now been talking with folks in Schenectady and Oswego and a whole bunch of the canal communities about urban infill development, and we can provide our product to other developers who want to create their own urban infill pocket communities, and they're phenomenal. You live in a brand new home, and you can walk to Wegmans, you can walk to entertainment, you can walk to the lake, you can walk to dining, all these great things. So, there's definitely a little bit of a social shift there that people are saying, no, there's a ton to do in downtown that I can't do if I live 5 miles outside of town on some county road.
Mm-hmm. Now, how do these homes hold up? Because I would imagine that's going to be one of the things that folks ask compared to a traditional home. Do they hold up better, worse, about the same?
It's almost an unfair competition. I mean, our steel siding has a lifetime warranty. It has a 40-year no paint guarantee. So our trim, is same thing. Like, it doesn't even have paint on it. It's embedded with its color. You're never painting trim. You're never scraping paint. You're never, where we put gutter guards over the gutters, so you're never scraping leaves out of the gutter. Anything we can think of, any reason that you would have to get on a ladder. I mean, you should never own more than a step ladder, a 3-foot step ladder in one of our homes. It's just, and in terms of longevity, you're talking about 40-year roofs that are then covered by an integrated solar array system. So that roof is not only rated for 40 years out in the open, now it's not getting sunlight on it and it's not getting ice on it. I would put these homes up against not only any traditional built home, but I'd put it up against a traditional built home with its future improvements 10 years from now. We're still going to be better than that home after it gets remodeled 10 years from now. Mm-hmm. For me, that's a sustainability thing. It bothers the out of me to have so much money going into replacing siding and roofing that's meant to fail in 10 or 15 years. I mean, give me a break. It's just, it bothers me that that's even a product that's sold. Yes, it's cheap, but you pay more than double when you eventually replace that. So unless you're just flipping the home in a few years, it kills me that's even an offering out there. So and then the wall systems. Our wall system, the SIP panel from EPS has the structural characteristics of a steel I-beam. So imagine your entire wall is composed of one steel I-beam after another. Like, snow load, like, give me 80 pounds of snow on per square foot on the roof. I'm okay. Like, we're putting in our foundation piers the other day, and we've got this big gauge when we read if we're getting enough resistance in the pier to make sure it can hold the house. Mm-hmm. And we're doing the math, and we're like, oh boy, we got to get this pier so it'll hold enough weight. And then when the calculation's done, it holds 10 times the weight that we need. These are the kind of safety factors that we're just going to build in because one, it doesn't cost us hardly any more money to do so, and two, I want that house standing there well after a comparable, stick frame house has been long demolished.
So the last time you were here, we talked batteries.
Yeah.
So is that still the biggest limiting factor in terms of what can be done in solar? Is that the one thing that as that continues to improve,
Yeah.
the bars it's going to keep raising?
So there's when you talk, solar, or those who want to go back and find the last clip that was on, you've really got two factors. We put in enough solar so you've never got an electric bill, you never got a heating bill. The battery technology has to get less expensive before we'll start integrating that in every home by default. I hate to charge a customer an extra $10,000 or $15,000 now if I could just go back and upgrade their home for $2,000 or $3,000 later.
Right.
So, but all that does is it's a resiliency issue. It's a what happens when the grid goes down issue. It's a how do we make the grid more stable when it's the middle of August at 4 p.m. and everyone's got their air conditioning on, and Guardian's running on starting up their second shift, and basically the grid's maxed out. You insert batteries, you can start taking these homes, their loads off the grid. They're still connected, but you're pulling from the battery when the grid's really taxed, and so you're going to start seeing that more and more at a utility level. It is already cheaper to build a solar farm and a battery bank than it is to install what they call a peak demand power plant, a power plant that just comes online when the grid's maxed out. It's already cheaper to put in a solar array and a battery bank. So it's only a matter of time before that battery cost comes down enough to where it's just included in every home. So we're getting there. Our homes, they do have a modest battery bank built in, and all that's designed to do is that if you have an ice storm and the power goes out for a prolonged period, it's to keep the home from freezing. Right. In the summer, it's to give you a little bit of air conditioning if the grid goes out and you want to take the edge off inside. It's not enough to really power the home. It's kind of an emergency setup. And then homeowners, though, can choose to add to that right now. It's just that I think we're another few years away from really having inexpensive batteries.
So when you talk about you sort of throw the word around off the grid.
Yeah.
At what point do you think we start to see these types of developments completely disconnected from the mainframe that people are used to or accustomed to?
I hope never. And why is because kind of like the internet. The internet's powerful because everything is interconnected, and you're doing what you need to do on your phone or your computer, but then you can watch a movie that's stored on a computer thousands of miles away. That's what Netflix is. So by staying connected to the grid, there's a potential for every home to not have to have as much battery. So if your neighbor isn't using any battery power right now, and it's 4 p.m. and you decide you want to make your house 62, well, it could pull from your battery and your neighbor's battery and other batteries in the development. You're still being charged, or I shouldn't say, with us you wouldn't be charged for the power, but what you use is still being tracked. But now dropping your home to 62 degrees in the middle of the summer is not pulling extra energy from Geneva or from the coal plant down in Cayuga. It's just pulling it from local sources, and that's how we get a truly resilient grid. So we're getting there, and our homes are part of the solution, and also the all these solar farms you see being debated and going around. These aren't cute little green sustainable things. they're a vital part to us actually having a stable electrical grid, because I would argue right now that our grid is stable, but susceptible, and I think we need to get our grid to where it's not susceptible anymore.
So even when we're talking locally, it might be something that's some folks might be scratching their head. Geneva, taxed power grid. What? No. Walk us through that. That's a reality anywhere, not just in large cities, New York City, that sort of thing, right?
Yep. So when about a week ago, a semi-truck driving up County Road 6 hit a utility pole. May have read it on fingerlakes1.com.
You did.
It didn't just knock the line off. It created a brownout situation to where it was actually, disrupting the grid. If we had a smart grid locally, switches would have been thrown automatically, and that power would have been rerouted. And so what that means is that whether it's just one incident, a truck hitting a trailer, or truck hitting a pole, or it's a bigger issue of when it's hot and you're in Geneva or Seneca Falls or Waterloo and you turn on the air conditioning in August, all that power has to come from somewhere. And it's better if it comes from a local source, and it's better if we have actually energy storage nearby. God forbid, imagine we had a terrorist attack on our electrical grid. It doesn't just affect New York City. It's not going to affect just Toronto or Pittsburgh, whatever. It's going to affect anyone connected to that grid section. And so when you have microgrids, local grids, my vision of Geneva is to where, and Greater Finger Lakes area is that, it become more resilient electrically. When we moved here because, a quarter of the world's fresh water is within 500 miles. And so as you look at climate change and you look at the effects around the world, I think what you're going to see is you're going to see more and more demand for resources, and that means water, and that means energy. And the more of it that we can produce locally, if we can be buying our food locally, if we can be buying our power locally and taking care of our local sources of water, well, to me, that's a livability issue. I brought two wonderful little boys into this world. Well, I should say I did. My wife may have had a major part in that. And I look at those boys and I want them, my goal is to not raise them as eco freaks or green kids. It's to raise them in an environment where they have fresh water, and they have energy to stay warm, and they have food to eat, and that the people around them are also thriving. That's the environment I want them to live in, and that's what I think ultimately on a global, or a regional basis we're trying to do is create communities that are resilient.
So how easily can this, the lake tunnel development, how easily can that be duplicated in any other part?
So what makes a solar village is that it has solar powered homes, that it has heat that comes from heat pumps. So all of our heating is electric, but it's really, really efficient electric. That's what a heat pump is. And then it manages its runoff well so that it's not polluting the lakes that we're around. Any oil from the roads is not polluting our local lakes. And finally, that it's dense and fits in a small footprint so that you're getting a lot of people. We're going to have 24 homes in really less than an acre of real usable area. And so you can do that anywhere. And the exciting part is as you get more of these little pocket communities, popping up, hopefully with homes from the solar home factory, you'll start having these little pockets of resiliency in each urban market. And so for a developer to build one of these, they already know how to do it. It's just a matter of increasing the density, and it's also important that the cities recognize the need for it and have zoning that will accommodate the more dense living.
So fast forward 1 year, what does it look like not only at the development but also in the manufacturing facility? What does it look like in Geneva for you guys?
So in January 2020, I would expect that we have all of our homes in the first phase in, that we have the first few homes of our second phase in, and we could do that faster. But as you said, we want to build up our manufacturing capacity. So a year from now, I think you're going to see us starting to fulfill orders outside of Geneva, and that's really exciting. That'll be a huge day for us when we actually ship a home more than 1.8 miles, which is the distance from the factory to the Lake Tunnel site. Yeah. And so, I think that's where we'll be a year from now. That said, what I find really exciting is that a year from now, while we'll still be working and putting in homes at Lake Tunnel, at the Solar Village, and we'll still be kind of further refining our manufacturing, we'll have proved the concept. I mean, we'll hit a huge milestone in 2 weeks here when we put in the first homes. Actually put them in on site. And I think for a lot of people, actually seeing that on site, seeing those homes there, seeing the quality of them, everyone who comes to the factory is just blown away that, one, there's a building within a building. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. And two, just the quality of these homes. These are better than anything that's being built on site. And so I think that what's really exciting is a year from now, I expect that we'll be looking very hard at what it's going to take to expand our operation into the rest of the 17 acres we own at 33 Forge Avenue. I think we're going to be looking at just how fast can we really ramp up to keep our quality, but instead of producing 10 homes in a year, how do we get to 100 homes in a year? Mm-hmm. And that's daunting, and it gives me a little bit of heartburn just thinking about it, but it also is incredibly exciting because I love Geneva and I want to be part of the revitalization of Geneva, but I also want to see Utica thrive. I want to see Waterloo thrive. I want to see Oswego and Schenectady and Seneca Falls and Penn Yan. I want to see little urban developments in all of these upstate cities, because upstate cities have been hit so hard and yet have so much inherent potential. I mean, we've almost gotten to that point where nobody says anymore, why are you doing this in Geneva? We're almost there. Still get it a little bit. Yeah. Almost there. We need to get to the point where the opportunity is just so obvious in all of these cities that people are saying, let's move into the urban core. Let's enjoy the great aspects of living downtown, and let's make these downtowns vibrant again.
All right. Well, I appreciate you making the time to come in. We'll definitely be talking again as you keep going through this process.
Thanks for having us, and thanks for your coverage of the development. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey guys, thanks for making Inside the FLX a part of your week, and thanks to Ryan Wallace, founder of Lake Tunnel Solar, for stopping by. As always, new episodes drop every Thursday and Sunday here on FingerLakes1.com. If you like what we're doing here, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube. If you are listening on iTunes, rate and review the podcast. It helps new listeners find the show and lets everyone know that local journalism and conversations like this matter.